Welcome in. Happy early Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm going to read a story to you. The night before Thanksgiving, there was a sad heart in the low storied, dark little house that stood humbly by the roadside under some tall elms. Small as her house was old, Mrs. Robb found it too large for herself alone. She only needed the kitchen and a tiny bedroom that lead out of it, and the still remained the best rooms and bathrooms with the low granite overhead. There had been a time after she was left alone when Mrs. Robb could help those who were poorer than herself. She was strong enough not only to do a woman's work inside your house, but almost a man's work outside in a piece of garden ground. At least slackness and edge had come hand to hand. These two reckless enemies of Paul, and together they had wrenched her strength and subsistence. She had always been looked up to by her neighbors, has been independent, but now she was left lame, footed and lame handed with a debt to carry and her bare land, and the house ill permitted to stand the siege of time. For a while she managed to get on, but at least began to be whispered about that there was no use for anyone. So proud it was easier for the whole town to care for her than for a few neighbors, and Mrs. Robb and better go to the poorhouse before winter and be done with it at that terrible suggestion. Her brave heart seemed to stand still. The people whom she cared for most happened to be poor, and she could no longer go into their households to make herself of use. The very elms overhead seemed to say, "Oh no," as the ground in the late autumn winds, there was something appearing even to the stranger present above the look of the little grey house, with Mrs. Robb's pale, worried face at the window. Hi, Veronica. Hi, guys. Come in. Look at everybody in. Someone has said that anniversaries are days to make other people happy, but sometimes when they come, they seem to be full of shadows and the power of giving joy to others. The incomparable white witch out to lighting the saddest heart, the most ineffective symptom. Sometimes even this seems to be on the dawn. Hey, Brandon. So poor old Mary Ann Robb sat at her window on the afternoon before Thanksgiving and fed herself poor and shuffled Indian across the frozen road. She looked eastward over a great stretch of cold meadow land. Bound wind swept across by icy ditches. It seemed to her as if before this, in all the troubles that she had known and carried, there had always been some hope to hold, as if they have never looked poverty full in the face, and since cold pellets looked before, she looked anxiously down the road with a horrible screaming and dread at the tough of bag, bringing axe out of pity to join in some Thanksgiving feast. But there was nobody coming with the gifts in hand. Once she had been full of love for such days, whether at home or abroad. But something chilled her very heart. Her nearest neighbor had been foremost of those who wished to go to the town farm, and he had said more than once that it was the only sensible thing. But John Mather was waiting impatiently to give her tiny farm into his own hands. He had advised some money up. Hey, Ajax, in her anxiety and predicting that there was still a debt after he cleared her would not to pay himself back, he would plug over the graves in the field corner and fell the great elms and waited now like a spider of his poor Perry. He often reproached her for being too generous towards these people in the past and coming too, but charged to other now on if she could only die in her own house and not suffering the pain of homelessness and despondence. It was thus a sunset, and she looked hopeless across the grey fields. There was sudden gleam of light far away on the lower hills beyond. The clouds opened in the west and let the sunshine through only a lovely gleam. Sharp swift as an arrow and brightened a far cold hillside where it fell in the same moment a sudden gleam of hope brightened the white landscapes of her heart. There was Johnny Harris, said Mary Ann Robb softly. He was a soldier son left an orphan, and the straight only John Miller said, but I couldn't see the poor boy in what I kept him this year after he got hurt. Spirit. But what anybody said, and he helped me what little he could. He said I was the only mother he'd ever had. I'm going on the west, mother. Rob says I Shannon come. Back till I get rich. And then he looked at me and laughed so pleasant and boyish. He wasn't one that liked to write. I don't think he was doing very well when I heard there it's almost 4 years ago now. I always thought if he got sick or anything, I should have a good home for him to come to. The poor Elizabeth Blake, who deaf one to he won't have any place to welcome him. The light faded of doors, and again Mrs. Robertson's covers stood before her. Yet it was not so dark as it had been in her sad heart. She still sat by the windows, hoping now in spirit of herself instead of feeling and a curious feeling of nearness and explaining made her feel so much lightheaded and light-hearted. I feel just if someone was gone to happy, she said, poor Johnny Harris. Perhaps he think of me if he's alive. It was dark now out of doors, and there were tiny clicks against the window. It was beginning to snow, and the great amp creaked in the raging wind overhead. Well, guys, part two is coming later on. You guys, I have to go out right now. You guys, peace out. I'll talk to you guys later. Love you all. Bye bye.